In the heart of Milan, Italy, in a small public art gallery, people come to view the work of an important American artist, Morris Louis. For Europeans, it's a rare opportunity to explore, in one place, a large body of Louis's paintings. His flowing streams of acrylic, soaked into large expanses of unprimed canvas, emphasize color and movement over imagery or form. A master of abstract expressionism. At the Padiglione d'Arte Contemporanea, many visitors enjoy the serenity of the space while studying Louis's art. But few realize the extraordinary human effort required to transport paintings, some 20 feet long, across oceans and continents to these gallery walls. It is the story of this complex, often arduous, but essential journey that lies ahead. Paintings going to Milan, Italy for this Morris Louis exhibition will come from museums, corporate collections, and private lenders from Los Angeles to Denmark. The show's shape and substance will come from many sources. The gallery's director, the curator, the dealer, and especially the artist's widow, Marcella Louis Brenner. Long before the paintings could begin their move, she was contacted at her home near Washington, D.C.
When one gets a request like this, one says, who's asking? And the request was coming from Dory Ashton, a good curator, responsible person with a history of publication and teaching and so on, so that one feels comfortable about the curator. And the gallery, the Padiglione, is in a very important city. Milan is a major center, really, of intellectual and cultural life for the 20th century. Then the other thing one considers are the paintings that they want from me. Am I willing to lend those paintings? That's first. Then security, insurance, travel, plus the responsibility of the people who are going to receive them and how they're going to handle them. So that one tends to be very, very careful.
Trellis, an early Louis piece, has hung in Marcella Brenner's home for years. Lending it shows a trust and faith not common to all collectors.
Nobody really wants to lend. The private lender is resistant because he does not want the painting down from his wall. And his wife is going to have a big party, and she wants the painting up at the time that she's having the 22 very fine guests next month or whatever. That's one kind of very understandable resistance. On the other hand, he knows that when a painting is in an important show, it increases the value of the painting. The institution's resistance has to do with whether it's planning to use the painting in a forthcoming show or whether it's already on the wall. Also, the safety and the security. Many of them are painted on unprimed canvas, which means it soils easily and you don't want to clean it in the normal way that you clean an oil painting. When anything goes wrong, regardless of the large amount of insurance money that you might be able to recover, so many hundreds of thousands of dollars are not what you want to hang on the wall.
Just 5 weeks before the opening, paintings begin to move. Trellis has been soft-wrapped by a local art transport firm. It offers just enough protection for the relatively short trip from Maryland to New York's Long Island City. 23 of the 27 paintings destined for Italy will come first to Ollendorf Fine Arts, one of the oldest and best-known firms of its kind. Their job of gathering the art going from America can seem like the center ring of a circus. Juggling all the balls is their art manager, Tamar Head.
Forwarding agents like ourselves, we specialize in moving artwork versus moving tractors or household goods or other things. This is for a show which is going to Milan. I can tell you that our shipment out of New York is leaving on the 16th of March. I'm responsible for making the arrangements to collect all the works, get them all to New York, get them all packed, take care of the export documentation, delivery to the airport, any kind of supervision that's required along the way, supplying people with any kind of information they need, you know, documents, paperwork, packing lists, and making sure that the artwork gets there on time and in one piece. Sometimes they're in very simple locations, and sometimes we have one that's a bit tricky. We have one painting that has to come down on top of an elevator from the 27th story of somebody's office building, and we're not there directly to take care of it, so we have to coordinate this with people we feel can handle it. But the main thing is that after a long period of time, we build up a network of people that we work through. It's not just our own company, but we're working with 7 other companies on this.
One of them, across the East River from Manhattan, hidden in a former paint factory, is the Judson Art Warehouse, a vast treasury of art collections managed by Tom Pelham.
We specifically keep a very low profile on the outside. We don't want to attract a lot of attention to this company. It looks like Beirut. Yeah. These are all paintings which are owned by the estate of Morris Louis, and those people are our client, and what we're doing here is providing a climate-controlled storage situation, a repository, whatever you want to call it, for all the works of art, including stretchers and frames, crates, everything that we can get into this room.
The Morris Louis collection is just one of many that receive the personalized attention of Judson's staff.
We treat all objects of unequal value with equal care. Whether it be a large Morris Louis painting or a small Morris Louis drawing, it's not up to us to determine which is more important. Because of what we do here, we need people who have got a different sensibility and a different idea of doing physical labor, and there is a lot of physical labor involved in this stuff. It's obvious that this stuff doesn't just walk in here by itself, and so we try to attract, you know, someone who's intelligent and wants to use their brain at the same time as using their hands. We're not schlepping refrigerators or cans of tuna fish or TV sets and stuff like that. If it has nothing to do with art, then we'll have nothing to do with it. The pieces in this room have a higher value than the worth of this business, but we don't think that way, because if we did, we'd probably be so nervous we couldn't do anything.
Steve, Dan Krause is here to roll up the Morris Louis paintings, please. Dan Krause is here to roll up the Morris Louis paintings.
I'd like to get started on these, get these rolled up. Thank you.
Danny Krause is one of the small group of art handlers that specializes in oversized paintings. His relationship with the canvas is nearly as intimate as the artist's, but mostly around the edges. Danny will spend a full day dismantling 3 paintings that are too large to travel safely on their stretchers. Staples have replaced tacks to secure canvases, but it remains a tedious job.
Staples are our friend when we're putting them in the canvas. Taking them out, you don't like them anymore. You wish you didn't put so many in, but you have to. So what's your guess, 376 staples? You got a thing going with these guys. You go back and check, for every staple, $5. Pay up. So 100% of the time, you end up without staples on the canvas. Staples tell a story of how many times it's been wrapped and taken away, too, usually. Or unwrapped and rewrapped. You usually get a zillion staples in the corners. All right, that's cool.
Art conservators will tell you that in an ideal world, a painting should never leave the stretcher. It should never even leave its home. But art handlers know that in the long run, the slight wear and tear that comes from being taken off a stretcher, rolled, and then put back on is much safer.
Got the barbershop effect here, huh? The way it rolls up. We watch every inch as we roll it, making sure there's nothing got by us.
The history of a painting is often told on its backside. Instructions and labels of its owners and exhibitors help reveal a painting's past. And often with abstract paintings, it's the easiest way to find out which way is up. As the size of modern art has grown, so has the complexity of moving and showing it. A pioneer in this field is Jimmy LeBron. His innovations have made it possible for artists to paint as big as they want and send it as far as they want, safely. No Morris Louis show is installed anywhere in the world without LeBron or someone from his team, like Danny Krause. LeBron's ties to Louis go back to the years before the artist's death in 1962.
This brings back memories when Morris passed away. We went down to his home in Washington, D.C., and out of his basement we had to roll quite a quantity of paintings and load them all into our truck and bring them from Washington, D.C. back to New York City for storage. So just the process of rolling one brings back the memories. We find that so many of these paintings are so large, it's less complicated to ship them dismantled and rolled and have a man over there to put them together. If you have to fold the painting, what you have to do, I'll just draw a little picture here for you. You have to take the painting and you fold it so you have one half going like that with a cylinder in the middle. And then you got to put another cylinder here so that the third section folds up like that. And then we brace them with sticks so you have a big package. And if you have 6 or 7 paintings like that, well, then you're talking about a lot of volume of space. If you dismantle it, you put about 5 of these stretches in one case, which is only about 18 inches deep. And that's the whole purpose. And also it's less wear and tear on the paintings. Most people in Europe know how to take a painting, unstretch it, and roll it, but they're not too much familiar with the process of folding paintings. And if you unfold it and you don't have the proper help, they could easily get creased. And you get one bad crease and there's thousands of dollars for restoration. These are the stretches that were originally designed by us about 25 years ago, which got us pretty much involved with the field of art. I was working in a warehouse, Santini Brothers, and I was helping them work on some paintings. And they were complaining about the problems they were having with wooden wedges. And I remembered in my previous work that I was doing, I was a cabinet maker. We used this type of hardware for the purpose of holding things together. And all I did was interpret the idea of using it in reverse. It's just a steel rod with a nut that you just expand the bolt and it tightens up the canvas. And it served the purpose, and we created a new type of stretcher, and that started my whole career by accident.
The Judson Loading Dock, a constantly changing exhibition of art, coming and going. With LeBron's preparations complete, the paintings are handed over to the Ohlendorf team, who must account for every piece.
All right, I'm going to take the 5 rolls first.
When different players begin to handle the art, moving it from place to place, there's often room for confusion.
Now I got silver 2.
Louis rarely named or dated paintings. After his death, they were given arbitrary numbers and names from the Greek and Hebrew alphabets. But those numbers are seldom used by art handlers who come up with their own systems. With so many different ways to identify a painting, sometimes it's hard to know what you've got.
Should only be 1 left. 1 rolled, 1 left. What's the last roll? 373? Yeah, 373.
So, for this show, the folks from Ohlendorf come up with yet another set of numbers that go on as they leave the warehouse, still relatively undressed. Valued at well over $500,000 each, the paintings can't go to Italy just wrapped in glassine, bubble wrap, and cardboard. At Ohlendorf, each painting will be fitted with heavier armor. Behind a door that reads 20th Century American Masters, Kevin McCloskey and his crew can protect just about anything.
To try to come up with cases that take odd-shaped work and try to keep it compact, it's a little more challenging than the normal paintings that come through. You've got them rolled on tubes, you've got others that are folded on their stretchers, you've got just on strip frames or very thin frames, so you run the whole gamut. We've been doing it so many years, it's second nature to us, you know.
There is an unspoken choreography to their work. Taking only a couple of measurements, using no drawings, they produce a finished box with close tolerances that would impress any furniture maker.
I don't think anyone actually, in the old days, started with art. They sort of picked it up as they went along because people's possessions included art, so they learned how to create it to get across, you know, and I think it just developed.
Today, they build cases to protect art of every shape and size. If a sculpture is too big, they build the case around it. If it's for an extended traveling show, a case is built to last a lifetime. One case for this show will hold 5 paintings, no two the same size.
We call this a tray pack, which is just what it says, trays with paintings of varying sizes. What we try to do is put the smallest painting on the bottom of the case, and then you make your surrounding styrofoam the same level, which gives it an even face to lay on. We pack them face to face and back to back to prevent any backs hitting the face of others. We'll just space these at even spaces, and that'll be another layer. We try to just put some packing everywhere, anywhere that'll touch anything, just to give it a little more protection. Our motto is overpack rather than underpack, you know, just to protect the art as well as possible. You know, 'cause most of it's irreplaceable. Finally, the largest painting goes on top, and that caps it off. And we always put the last painting face down, for fear if someone opens the case and slips and it hits, you know, it doesn't hit the face of the painting. So those are the rules, you know, we tend to go by at all times. Before the cover is put on, we'll put a tape on the cardboard with instructions on how to pack, and in this case, how to repack, because they have to save all the inside materials to avoid loss. So we'll even give them step by step, and it usually works fine. You know, we've never had any complaints or anything.
The case weighs 460 pounds, but only a small part of that is actually canvas and paint. Once the cases are built, their safety again is in the hands of Tamar Head, who must deal with each lender's anxieties.
Yeah, he's got some sawhorses.
Museums used to be very hesitant about lending very large paintings, but now they'll do it, and we have to find a way to get them safely. And although it's probably better for many of the pieces to go stretched, that presents an enormous problem when you're moving a huge piece of freight. It's easy to mishandle it, and it's easy to have it damaged along the way. Most people take it for granted when they go into a museum and see the paintings on the walls that this is the way it will be, but they don't have the slightest idea how the things get there, and they really never stop to think about it.
The only time most museum visitors realize a painting is traveling is when they see a large blank space on a gallery wall. One Lewis painting is coming from the Baltimore Museum of Art. A special climate-controlled truck has already made pickups for the show in Minnesota and Ohio. For security reasons, they claim it holds electronic exhibits rather than works of art. A handful of married couples specialize in this high end of the trucking business. Among them, Tom and Joyce Craze. Living like middle-class gypsies, they log more than 150,000 miles a year.
Where did you see that sign for 95?
We just passed it.
Ah!
It's going this way, honey. You're right.
Oh. We transport art cross country. It's the value of what we have on. We have to constantly be aware of what it is and the way we handle it, the way it's moved. The shipment we have on is exclusive use of the vehicle. There's nothing, we're not allowed to stop and pick anything else up. The museums have paid to have nothing on the truck except the 3 paintings that we have on now. This truck we had made for our use. A lot of times we can't leave the vehicle. We have to stay pretty much with it. So our unit it's pretty much self-contained.
The cab feels more like the private cabin of a luxury yacht, complete with a TV, VCR, microwave, refrigerator, bathroom, and a poodle named Tinker Toy.
Each art move is a little different a lot of times. The circumstances surrounding it, what kind of a show it's going into.
We've done the artist Bayes. The display was called The Plight of the American Indian, but he spent some time in a building with a live coyote, and the rubble from the building was a part of the display. I never did quite understand it.
"1,500 miles from the first pickup at the Walker Art Gallery in Minneapolis, the three paintings Tom and Joyce Craze have gathered join the others at the Ohlendorf Warehouse in New York's Long Island City. The Ohlendorf crew stayed late into the night awaiting their arrival. Leaving these paintings in the truck overnight would be out of the question. These are among the largest paintings going to Italy. To crew foreman Jerry McCluskey, safely extracting the biggest one, weighing close to 700 pounds, is a familiar challenge. For Jerry, operating the forklift, called a high-low, has become an art form all its own.
Years ago, they used to take them out by hand, and there was always a chance of a box tipping and injuring somebody. So I figured out, let the machine do work, let the high-low do the work. Pull it right to the forklift. We use the big strap we use for hoisting sculptures and such. So I made a web in the forklift blades, and then I use another big cargo strap to pull it to the high-low, and then it cradles into the webs, and then you can come out. And it helps because sometimes the box won't go into a truck straight. You have to angle it. You can angle it and lock it at that angle. The machine can pick 6,000 pounds, so I don't think a 800-pound box is going to give the machine any trouble. It is a lot safer to me. It's a lot safer than trying to get it out on the gate, bringing it down, then uprighting it outside. This way, it's always locked into the machine, so I don't see what else could happen.
Not every painting comes to the Ohlendorf Warehouse, particularly those that are already on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean, in Denmark. The Louisiana Museum of Modern Art in the small Danish town of Humlebæk is sending 2 Louis paintings to Italy. Many museums feel the risks of international lending outweigh the benefits, but here there is a different philosophy. With a collection equal to the beauty of its surroundings, the museum's liberal stand on lending artwork began with its founder and director, Knut Jensen.
We will never say no to any request of loans now and in the future for this artist, and also for a good many other artists. It is very important. We do it because of the artist and the friendship with the artist, Vida Marcella Louis Brenner, who has been helping us throughout the years and given us many wonderful works.
I had the very great pleasure of getting to know Mr. Jensen better and getting to know that museum, which is absolutely beautiful. Probably the most beautifully located museum that I've ever been in. He continued to be interested in Louis, and I, of course, as a Jew, and very much aware of what the Danes had done for our people, because as you know, they rescued all of Danish Jewry from Hitler. It seemed to me that that was a very appropriate place for me to give some paintings and drawings, which I did do.
So that we could create a Maurice Louis room in this museum, which I consider one of our most important rooms in the museum. It has a magnetism, these paintings, a kind of mystery about them, romantic, mystic paintings, full of lyrical feeling and so. And you can go on watching them for years, and you never get finished with them. The whole procedure of organizing an exhibition is so much more complicated today. Many museums are really very restrictive. And I think it is so necessary to do big exhibitions, because otherwise you have to collect your impressions and look at things in so many places. And it's not the same as seeing the whole development retrospectively from the beginning to the end. And the economic value of the work is increased by having been shown in Paris and London and even Humlebæk and Milano and so on. So you see, of course, it works both ways.
I think there will still be big exhibitions around and good exhibitions. And as we say here, we can always do one more, the next one.
The next one is now less than 2 weeks away. The paintings going from Ollendorf Fine Arts are safely packed, ready for a new destination, Milan, Italy. What came in as lightly wrapped artwork now leaves as more than 3 tons of well-protected cargo. It will take 2 full-size trucks to get everything to the airport. The Milan show has been in the works for more than a year, but no one in Ollendorf knew anything about it until just 3 months ago.
There's another case, let me see, from Minneapolis, which is pretty big. Hold on a second.
It's got to go as high as we can on that box.
It seems that money is forthcoming later and later, and there's less of it. And so everything is done at the last minute. It does absolutely put the pressure on.
Just watch the balance. Once I tighten my straps, it's going to change.
That's going to go from Texas directly. There's a Lufthansa Airbus from Frankfurt, and since it's going to be rolled, I don't think it's going to be any problem.
No problem. Even out on the street, a box that shouldn't fit into the truck is made to fit. No problem.
Put the 2x4, eh? Put it up on the second one, then.
And somebody from New York is apparently going over to restretch the paintings over there, so we come back to you rolled. Our biggest concern is usually the schedule. That's to get everybody to do their part in enough time so that we can get the artwork where it has to be.
Today, it has to be under the watchful eye of an Ollendorf employee until loaded on the plane. It's a long day for Greg Fensterman, watching cargo handlers create an enormous multi-million-dollar mountain of art. John DeFazio calls it building a pallet.
The trick of building it is getting a nice wall that you can lean everything on. Put it in the center, and then we're getting the solid, more square pieces and load it around so this thing doesn't tip and it's sturdy and nothing bangs into it. So it's like, until we get everything, it's a puzzle. So, I mean, you know, if it wasn't art, it wouldn't matter. It'd be just another box. Oh, we get these every week. It's fun.
Watch your heads.
It won't go nowhere.
The first of 2 pallets, it weighs in at 5,000 pounds. The second pallet waits for one last painting to arrive from the Whitney Museum of American Art. It is accompanied every step of the way by the museum's associate registrar, Jane Rubin. She will be the only art courier on the trip. With enough lumber and material to build a small house, the paintings are wrapped and ready to go. Alitalia Air Cargo Flight 951. 3 times a week, non-stop service from New York to Milan. Computer parts, perishable foods, works of art. Sometimes even racehorses. Anything that needs to get to Italy in a hurry fills this empty cavern for 85 cents a pound. The bill for the Lewis art? More than $10,000. A 7-hour flight carrying tons of cargo, a crew of 4, and Jane Rubin, the Whitney's art courier, riding shotgun just a few feet above her painting.
We decided to send a courier with this painting because it's a painting that's very important to the Whitney collection, and it's a lot of work. We spend maybe 40 hours from the time we leave New York until we get to sleep again. But it's also very rewarding. It's the only way I would get to fly in a cargo plane, which is a terrific experience. It's like having your own 747 from New York to Milan. Those are the fun things.
Finally, Milan's Malpensa Airport. A new country, a different language, new teams of art handlers, beginning to unwind the ball of thread that took 4 weeks to assemble in America. In 12 days, everything must be ready for the opening. As in America, while the men do the moving, a woman makes sure everything happens safely and on time. Annarita Panzeroni works for the Italian counterpart of Ollendorf, a firm called Zust Ambrosetti. After being unloaded, the paintings for the Morris Louis retrospective will spend the next 3 days in storage, taken to a bonded customs warehouse at the airport, where they wait for the bureaucracy to catch up. Once the necessary papers have been processed, the paintings begin to move again. For the men from Zust, today's challenge is to reshape the mountain of art so it will fit into the back of one small van and onto a flatbed truck.
That's why we have to load on this type of van, because you can easily load on each side.
Yeah. So how do they lift the
crane here? They have to understand what they are going to do, you see, because they know very well what's inside the cases. So they are very, very concerned about that. Otherwise, we don't need 10 persons to stay here.
The machine does some of the work, but it's mostly Italian muscle. Small holes drilled through the cases await the arrival of the customs agent.
He's sealing the cases because they have not been, as you say, nazionalizzate. That means they are still as foreign goods. You see, this is just to prove that we have not changed the painting.
A ballet of denim and plywood continues under Jane Rubin's careful eye.
Adesso quella lì al centro lì più alta, la mettiamo qui.
That's your case.
It's time to load the Whitney's painting in case number 2, numero 2. Jane Rubin is here at the insistence of the museum and its insurers to make sure every precaution is taken. The flatbed truck is fully loaded, leaving the smaller van to hold this huge case. The Italians are experienced art handlers, but as with any jigsaw puzzle, sometimes pieces don't fit. If the truck's too small, the truck's too small. A serious problem of just a few centimeters.
300 kilos approximately, isn't it?
Yeah,
more or less.
630 pounds, yeah.
Yeah.
Their solution is to use more Italian muscle. But for Jane Rubin, it is not okay.
No, I don't want to do it. I don't.
No, niente.
No.
Si sballotto troppo il quadro.
Yeah, I insist, really. It's absolutely, I don't care how
Niente,
they
okay.
The courier has the final say in these matters, so they try to fit it onto the flatbed.
Like this?
No. This one, this side, is coming up.
Yeah, but the case doesn't fit on the truck. It doesn't fit. It's too long.
And so, a third try. By rearranging several cases on the flatbed, the final piece of the puzzle fits.
I feel much better now.
Hey, I feel better too. Thank you very much.
Oh, niente. Are you happy, Jane?
Happy. I'm happy.
Now the paintings have a 1-hour ride to their temporary home in Milan. They're accompanied by a police escort provided by the local constabulary in the unlikely event of a holdup or terrorist attack. Milano, a city of 1.5 million people, the fashion and financial heart of Italy. It also has a long-standing involvement with the arts that includes the La Scala Opera House and Leonardo's Last Supper. The Padiglione d'Arte Contemporanea, known in Milan by its acronym PAC, occupies a tranquil corner of former palace grounds. The old palace is now the city's modern art museum. The PAC, once a stable for Napoleon's horses, has become a popular showcase for visiting exhibitions. No loading dock, no forklifts. Just 10 men laboring in the dappled afternoon sun.
Chiami? No?
Jane Rubin seems more relaxed, but she's still right there every time her case is touched.
It's a lot of nerve-wracking time when you're watching people handle a case the size of our case numero 2. And you have to learn certain styles, I think, when you're a courier, of dealing with the people who are handling your art. When you're here in Italy, when you're working with the museum people or with the people who transport art, they know they're working with art, they know how to handle it, and they're not going to be told how to do their job. So you have to learn ways of expressing your anxiety gently.
Alla prossima. Ci vediamo a chiusura.
Ci vediamo domani a giugno.
One full day consumed getting the art from the airport to the gallery. Still entombed in plywood, the paintings must wait again. No case can be opened until customs inspectors are present. They have arrived late, bringing bureaucracy, confusion, and petty details. Anna Rita isn't amused by this charade. A case is picked to be opened. Does it contain the paintings listed on the manifest? Hard to tell if you've never seen Lewis's art. Perhaps the woman from the Fine Arts Commission knows. She has to be there too, by law. The numbers match. It must be what it claims to be. A few more works are presented to the inspectors, quite randomly. To no one's surprise, everything is in order. Eventually, the government officials are satisfied. They've done their job. Art handler Danny Krause has flown from New York to Milan to prepare the show, but the customs ritual has put him 3 days behind schedule before he can even get started. Not surprisingly, the Whitney's painting comes first.
This painting, because of its size, it's difficult to handle. This painting is so large that we had it folded over a tube so that it could be shipped this way. Otherwise, it would have been too large completely.
For the Italians, this method is a novelty, but they follow Danny's directions in any language.
On tre. 1, 2, 3.
Jane Rubin's job clearly is made easier by the presence of Danny Krause.
We're here more to watch that nothing happens, that this painting is unfolded the way it was folded, and that it has its condition reported as it's received and as I saw it leave the museum in New York. Yeah, it looks fantastic.
It really does.
I think, come look and see what I was looking at.
Oh, yeah.
In refastening the stretcher sections, one edge is just a bit out of line.
I see.
You know what I'm
Because
saying?
there may be too much pressure on the side.
Exactly.
We can have it perfect, let it be
Sure.
perfect.
That.
Va bene.
Va bene?
That goes good now.
See?
We care very much about this painting. It's fragile because it's on unprimed canvas, and we wanted to do a condition report when it arrived here. Also to be there to document any problems that might happen, which hopefully would not because the courier was there. Okay, well, you tack this one. I'm going to get gloves.
Sure. Yeah.
Bravo, bravo.
To start.
Grazie, signor.
Prego.
Prego. This is our Morris Louis, happily waiting to be exhibited in Milan in good shape. Now I head back to Rome or to New York. 2 days of vacation, which I think I deserve. We do the work, but we don't stay for the opening. It's okay. We're in Italy, so it's okay.
While Danny Krause labors to prepare all the paintings before the arrival of the show's curator, Dory Ashton, the PAC's curator, Lucia Mattino, oversees every phase of the gallery's operation.
We are a municipal space, and we deal with private collectors, with museums, with transportation companies, insurance companies, with people in charge of the setting up. It is a very complex pattern of operations. And what I do is trying to keep all these things together, if possible, you know. No matter how cautious you are, how much you take care of things, you always come to the moment in which there is one person handling physically and touching things and stretching stretchers and doing these things. And you must be present until the very last moment, and nothing is finished until what you have borrowed is back to the lender exactly in the conditions it was when it came.
No way. That's got to be keyed back in. Not nearly enough there. The keys allow you to make it either larger or smaller depending on what you need. In this case, we need to make it a little smaller so we can stretch it to where it needs to be. In this case, it definitely shrunk. Much better already, yes.
Staple after staple, a painting is brought into shape. And one by one, stretchers, like skeletons, are brought into Danny's workshop.
This way?
Some of the larger paintings have a blank canvas underneath to give greater protection. It must be stapled in place before the painted canvas is stretched and stapled over it. A very specific pattern is used to join canvas and stretcher.
First thing we have to do is tack down all the corners into position so that it starts out pretty much squared off. And you pull the middles into position where it originally used to be. And then you just keep working your way toward the corners, which are already in place. And then you release the staples in the corners so that any ripples that you're bringing toward the corners work its way out. Then you redo your corner.
1,085 staples by actual count on this single painting. On his own, Danny can stretch and frame a painting in a few hours. But preparing 27 paintings in a few days will not be a one-man job.
What's difficult is trying to get these pieces hung, knowing that you have to use so many people in order to get it done in time, and you just can't be in control of every move that gets made. And it's a little nerve-wracking when you're not in charge of every move of the paintings.
This is Malo. This way.
There's also the communication problem between myself and the Italian workers.
No. No. Ah, on the hook. Hook. In America, hook. Hook.
Rifalegname qui in Italia. Lavorare.
Non comprende. Ehi.
America.
America.
No, Italia. Lavorare di questo.
Che questo?
Non ci capiamo.
Non comprende.
6 days before the opening, and several paintings remain to be stretched.
I would think when Dory gets here, she'll be looking at everything with a magnifying glass, so to speak.
Dory Ashton, the exhibition's curator, has arrived in Milan from New York City to organize and hang the Lewis show. She selected every painting for the exhibition months ago, but until this moment, when she sees them in the gallery, she doesn't really know how they will work with this space.
There are a lot of problems, I think, in an exhibition of Morris Lewis. For one thing, the formats in his best work are very large, and at his best, Lewis did work in a way which you might think was repetitive if you weren't very careful. I am very concerned about how to hang it in such a way that people can't just walk past and say, oh yes, and unfurled and unfurled and unfurled, okay, a floral, you know.
We'll use the big one on that wall.
When you're thinking about a rather large exhibition, you have a mind's eye view of how it might look. And in the case of Lewis, I really am going to work in the gallery because it may be that we would have to arrange it in such a way that it wouldn't be chronological.
The biggest painting should probably be there on that wall alone.
Well, I have an idea about what I'd like to do with it, and I have an idea about what will be at the entry, for instance. It may be that when I put it there, it doesn't work.
It will take a little time.
So you're not
But I
planning
want
to
to-
keep all the series together?
No, I don't think so.
You wanna-
How do you feel about it?
Well, I don't know.
Time is becoming a critical factor. With paintings still to be stretched, it is essential that Dory and Danny work in harmony.
What do you think your schedule will be?
On Monday, since everything got delayed at the airport, we're running
Yeah.
behind 2 days.
So you'd
But
be
I'm gonna-
finished by Monday?
I'll be finished on Monday.
Let's go back through now. I think that much of this now we can't really decide until we have the other stretched up paintings. So we'll have to see what the space is like. I was thinking about taking that vertical one and using that down there.
At this stage, the curator seems to be orchestrating a large game of musical chairs, but each move brings the show into sharper focus.
I am an art historian and a critic, and I also am curious, and I've been pondering the various aspects of how especially in painting, how painting evolved in the United States after the Second World War, and he is one of the key figures. He was an artist who was a late starter. He was an exact contemporary of Jackson Pollock, but he got to be known, at least 25 years later than Jackson Pollock was known. Part of the appeal of the paintings of Morris Lewis is that it draws you into its movement, and people were very much excited by the great clarity that they saw.
For 2 days, as Danny Krause puts it, paintings are flying.
That does it. That's the last painting to stretch. Finally, bravo.
It takes 4 days and thousands upon thousands of staples to prepare the 27 paintings. The job is almost finished for Danny, his Italian crew, and for curator Dory
You did a
Ashton.
great job. It's a beautiful painting, yeah. I think this room is almost, I like it this way. This, of all the unfurls, has the moodiest feeling for the blacks and grays moving down into the veils, which are also very moody. And here, where you have a flow upward, if you like, it gives it a nice movement through the room. Every painting has its own ambiance, and every painting relates to walls and floors and rooms differently.
There is one last point of discussion between the workers and Lucia Mattino. What kind of hardware should be used to hang these heavy paintings? It is a point that never quite gets resolved.
There was about 5 different ways of hanging, and I think all 5 of them will be used in this show.
With the opening close at hand, work intensifies, but there's always time to make those small, final adjustments.
Perfect.
An exercise in international partnership, finally completed. 27 paintings hung and ready for the show. Long before the paintings began their journey to Milan, Dory Ashton was working on the show's catalog. For it, she commissioned a poem by Richard Howard called, Like Most Revelations, after Morris Louis.
It is the movement that incites the form, discovered as a downward rapture. Yes, it is the movement that delights the form, sustained by its own velocity. And yet, it is the movement that delays the form, while darkness slows and encumbers. In fact, it is the movement that betrays the form, baffled in such toils of ease, until it is the movement that deceives the form, beguiling our attention. We supposed it is the movement that achieves the form. Were we mistaken? What does it matter if it is the movement that negates the form? Even though we give up ourselves to this mortal process of continuing, it is the movement that creates the form.
On an overcast spring evening in Milan, Italy, the show opens. Morris Louis, beyond abstract expressionism, attracts a mixed group of visitors. At openings in Italy, it appears, the people come to see more than be seen. A chance to explore and ponder. Marcella Brenner, Morris Louis's widow, is on hand with her friends and family. One is longtime friend and advisor, Andre Emmerich, Louis's art dealer, who was instrumental in coordinating this show.
I mean, Louis's work is known in Europe from photographs, reproductions, books, catalogs, and the single painting in this and that museum. To see Louis in depth in all his phases in a kind of survey show hasn't been seen in Europe in many years.
It's very exciting, and I'm always so sympathetic for the people who were doing the work, and so glad to see that it came out so well. It's a big job.
It has taken more than a year and the labor of dozens of dedicated workers to make this exhibition a reality. Here at the Padiglione di Arte Contemporanea, people study the works of an American master, unaware of the presence of many who have contributed.
Smile on your face.
Finally, they don't know what's behind.
In Italy, appreciation for an artist's work can be communicated by gesture alone. Everyone who has participated in this show can take comfort in its success. Lenders have accepted the inevitable risks. Borrowers have assumed an awesome responsibility. Throughout the world, visitors to galleries are exposed to works of art that they might never see if paintings did not make this complex, arduous, and seldom seen journey.